Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Rebekah Roberts.
And I'm Yochanan Elrom.
In our top story, the IDF remains on high alert for possible attacks from Iran as the radical Islamic regime begins to crumble. The Ayatollah has warned that any U.S. strike in the country will be retaliated with violence against Israel and American forces in the region. President Trump warned the leaders of the radical Islamic Republic that violence against peaceful protesters would be met with force. Iran International News reported that over 12,000 protesters have been murdered in an organized campaign directed by the Iranian leadership. The majority of those killed are civilians under the age of 30. On the eve of this broadcast, the U.S. military was in the advanced stages of planning a strategic strike on the fanatic regime.
U.S. President Donald Trump has announced a 25% tariff on any country doing business with the radical Shiite Islamic Republic of Iran. This move is meant to isolate Tehran economically as it faces bankruptcy and popular protest, which threaten to topple the Ayatollah's fanatic regime. Iran is currently experiencing 60% inflation while grappling with a crippling energy and water crisis. Snapback sanctions for its nuclear weapons program have further exacerbated the regime's hold on power. The tariffs, which went into effect immediately, target Iran's last remaining allies, namely China and Russia.
Jerusalem is moving to taper off its dependence on American military aid. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told The Economist that he aims to reduce Israeli reliance on American assistance to zero within a decade. Netanyahu confirmed that Israel may not seek to fully renew the $3.8 billion assistance package that is due for renegotiation in 2028. He said that while Israel works towards military independence, it remains committed to fighting for the allegiance of the American people. In the aftermath of the genocidal Hamas attacks on Israel on October 7, 2023, Israel was betrayed by the Biden administration when it refused to deliver weapons to Israel as it faced enemies on 7 fronts simultaneously. Jerusalem vowed to become self-sufficient so that it can defend itself alone, if necessary.
U.S. President Donald Trump has taken a bold stand against Jew hatred, declaring that antisemitism has no place in the Make America Great Again movement. In an exclusive interview with the New York Times, Trump distanced himself from increasing anti-Jewish sentiments perpetrated by leading far-right figures in the United States. He condemned antisemitism and said Jew hatred is not welcome in the Republican Party or in the MAGA movement.
The U.S. Department of Education, under the direction of President Trump, has launched a portal to make the reporting of foreign donations more transparent. This data has confirmed that Qatar is, in fact, the largest source of foreign funding in American higher education. The report reveals that Qatar provided about $6.6 billion to universities, including $2.3 billion to Cornell University and massive donations to Carnegie Mellon, Texas A&M, and Georgetown. Michigan Representative Tim Walberg, who chairs the House Education and Workforce Committee, told the Jewish News Syndicate that American college campuses are being flooded with foreign cash, but every single dollar given by our adversaries comes with strings attached. He said America's adversaries exploit these financial ties to steal research, spread divisive propaganda, push indoctrination, and undermine free speech.
President Trump's team of negotiators tasked with brokering a peace deal between Israel and Syria have proposed a revolutionary idea to solve the conflict over the border zone between the two countries. U.S. negotiators suggested changing the disputed area into a tourist attraction, transforming the region into a place of opportunity and cooperation. They proposed turning Mount Hermon, which borders both countries, into the Aspen of the Middle East. This would satisfy Israel's demand of Syrian demilitarization along the border and protect the ethnic minorities living there. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said, "We want to make sure the area next to our border is safe, and we want security for our Druze friends living there."
A Canadian member of parliament has launched a campaign to identify and charge IDF soldiers for crimes against humanity. Alberta Representative Heather McPherson submitted the petition, falsely claiming that Canadian citizens who served in the IDF were in violation of international law. It calls on Ottawa to investigate and charge Canadian citizens who served in the Israeli army. The petition urges the Canadian government to direct its Border Services Agency to screen Canadian citizens returning from Israel for military service. It also urged the government to release official warnings that Canadians serving in the IDF may face criminal liability under Canadian law. The motion, which has already gained over 5,000 signatures, is being called an anti-Semitic witch hunt that unduly singles out Jewish and Zionist Canadians by making unfounded accusations.
The Trump administration has announced America's withdrawal from 66 UN and other international organizations. The White House published a presidential memorandum following a review of organizations, conventions, and treaties that are contrary to the interest of the United States. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said, "President Trump is clear. It is no longer acceptable to send the blood, sweat, and treasure of the American people to these institutions with little or nothing to show for it." He added that the days of billions of dollars in taxpayer money flowing to foreign interest at the expense of our people are over. Since the start of President Trump's second term in January of last year, the United States has withdrawn from dozens of other corrupt organizations, including the World Health Organization and the UN Human Rights Council. He's also called to dismantle UNRWA, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinians that has been infiltrated by Hamas.
The Jewish community of Mississippi is mourning the destruction of its oldest and largest synagogue after it was intentionally set on fire last week. Security footage shows a masked man setting the blaze in a deliberate attack. Beth Israel Synagogue was badly damaged in the fire, and its library of sacred Jewish texts, including 2 Torah scrolls, was destroyed. The FBI has detained a suspect who confessed to torching what he called the Synagogue of Satan. Jackson Mayor John Horn said acts of anti-Semitism, racism, and religious hatred are attacks on Jackson as a whole and will be treated as acts of terror against resident safety and freedom to worship.
The United Arab Emirates has slashed scholarships to the United Kingdom, fearing radicalization on campus by the Muslim Brotherhood. Abu Dhabi announced that Emirati citizens will no longer be eligible to learn at institutions in the UK at the government's expense. According to a report in the Financial Times, UAE leaders said the reason for the exclusion of British schools is because Emiratis don't want their children being radicalized on campus. And in related news, the U.S. Treasury and State Departments have designated 3 branches of the Muslim Brotherhood as terrorist organizations. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the United States will use all available tools to deprive these Muslim Brotherhood chapters of the resources to engage in or support terrorism.
The Gaza border region is a blanket of red tulips as 50,000 bulbs donated by Christians in the Netherlands are in full bloom. Johan van der Ham from the Christians for Israel in Holland said that his organization planted more than 150,000 bulbs throughout Israel last month. 1/3 of the delicate flowers were planted in Israeli communities along the Gaza border. This is the second year that the planting project has brightened the Israeli landscape, and van der Ham said that the tulip represents a passage from the book of Amos that says the roots of the Jewish people in the land of Israel cannot be uprooted.
Samoan Prime Minister Laululi Leoateha Schmidt has announced that his country will establish an embassy in Israel's capital, Jerusalem. This according to the Jewish News Syndicate. The Polynesian island nation has held diplomatic relations with Israel since 1979. Bilateral ties have grown over the years, yielding strong cooperation in the fields of health, technology, agriculture, and energy. Schmidt addressed a group of local Christian leaders at a prayer service for Israel. He said he had instructed his foreign ministry to start preparation to open an office of Samoa in Jerusalem this year. The move follows similar actions by other island nations who have established their embassies in the Israeli capital. Fiji opened its embassy in Jerusalem in September, and Papua New Guinea inaugurated its diplomatic mission in the Holy City 2 years ago. That concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. We're here in our beautiful studio in Jerusalem. My guest today is Ze'ev Orenstein. He's the Director of International Affairs for the City of David. Ze'ev, thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Tell our viewers a little about what is the City of David?
The City of David is the historic site of biblical Jerusalem. It's the place where the kings of the Bible ruled and the prophets of the Bible preached. That up until about 150 years ago, everyone was looking for Jerusalem in the wrong place, thinking it was the old city of Jerusalem. But King David never walked through the old city of Jerusalem. He never put a note between the stones of the western wall. When the Bible speaks about Jerusalem, it's speaking about the City of David.
What's interesting about the City of David, and I'm a very big fan, I come probably 6 times a year, is there's always something new. How are you doing this so fast? How are you finding so many incredible things?
Well, the amazing thing is it's both fast and slow at the same time, because the City of David is not very big. It's only about 11 acres in size, and yet it's been excavated over the last 150 years, and over that time, we've only excavated about a third of the site. Now, why so little? Because the City of David is also a modern-day neighborhood, a mixed Jewish-Arab neighborhood. Now, if this was the United States, what would happen here? 2 words: eminent domain. Here's a check, cash it, you're all leaving. But in Jerusalem, in this part of Jerusalem at least, we don't apply eminent domain. And so the challenge in the City of David is, how do you, on the one hand, respect the modern-day City of David, the people who are living in the City of David, going to work, going to school, and yet at the same time uncover the heritage and history with significance, not to millions, but to billions of people around the world.
You had a huge milestone in September. Secretary of State Marco Rubio was here for it. The Prime Minister came to it. There was a who's who of politicians and faith-based diplomacy. What happened?
For the first time in 2,000 years, we were able, together with archaeologists from the Israel Antiquities Authority, to make a physical connection from the Pool of Siloam, the Shiloach pool, at the southern end of the City of David, which is perhaps the largest ritual bath in the world, where the historian Josephus said you would have had nearly 3 million people, say on Passover and the pilgrimage festivals, cleansing themselves before making their way up to the temple atop the Temple Mount. What we are doing now in the City of David is excavating the Pool of Siloam, excavating the pilgrimage road, the biblical superhighway that would have taken the pilgrims 2,000 years ago from the pool all the way up on pilgrimage, the half-mile journey up to the temple on the Temple Mount. And for the first time in 2,000 years, there is now a physical connection from the pool up along the pilgrimage road through the City of David to the Temple Mount.
3 times a year, the Jewish people and people who believe in God came up to Jerusalem. And in October, I went with my family during the Feast of Tabernacles, and we walked from the Pool of Siloam all the way up. It was incredibly significant. What does this mean to people around the world?
I think it means many things. We're living in a time where faith, people who are believers, the Bible, it's ridiculed, it's scorned. If you go back more than a century ago, the Bible was revered. Today, that is no longer the case. It's almost a 180-degree shift. And many people internally are questioning not so much their faith, but it's almost hard to be taken seriously. And the City of David, perhaps more so than any place in the world, allows a person to both believe and to know, where the science, the archaeology is affirming so much of Jerusalem's biblical heritage, not simply as a matter of faith, but as a matter of fact. That when you're in the City of David, you see time and time again, more than any other place on the planet, that when you're in the place where the Bible happened, the words of the Bible come to life. Not because I say so, but because this is what's literally being unearthed every single day in the City of David, matching up word for word with what it says in the Bible.
Christians are flocking to the City of David. I've been on tours where Christian leaders break down crying. Why is this so significant to Christians?
How many places can you go where, whether you're Jewish, whether you're Christian, where the very footsteps of the people who mean most to you in your faith walked? To literally walk on the stones, where those people who established your faith, everything you believed, that they walked here, not because you believe it, but because the archaeology, the history, the science is affirming it, not simply as a matter of faith, but as a matter of fact. There aren't as many places as you would think. The City of David, for Jews and for Christians, is perhaps the central place where you know, wherever you walk in the City of David, you are literally walking in the footsteps of your faith, the footsteps of the Bible, the very bedrock that the nations that you're coming from are based upon.
One of the things that's so interesting is that the world that doesn't believe in the Bible is working feverishly to try to disconnect Israel from the locations. They say that these are Palestinian heritage sites. How could they even say these things when we have the evidence right before our eyes?
Well, that's exactly why they say it, because there's no place in the world, more so than the city of David, that undermines the whole argument that Israel's an occupying power, Israel's a colonizing power, that we're outsiders, we're foreigners here. There's no place in the world that roots the Jewish people in the land of Israel more so than the city of David, through countless archaeological discoveries spanning more than 100 years, going on to this very day. And that's why they want to get rid of the city of David. That's why they want to literally bury the city of David, because the city of David represents an inconvenient truth. Because every single day, the more archaeologists are digging in the city of David, the more they are discovering affirmations that we have been here for thousands of years, which obviously has implications for Christians and Christianity as well. That if the Jewish people were in Jerusalem, then the foundations of Christianity are in very shaky ground, because Christianity is built on what a Jew did in Jerusalem 2,000 years ago. So those who are trying to erase the biblical heritage, those who are trying to deny or break the connection of the Jewish people with the land of Israel, with Jerusalem, have to find a way to minimize, to get rid of the city of David. And that's what puts the city of David at the front lines, not just of archaeology, but really on the front lines of the rights of the Jewish people to the land of Israel, and the believers who want to show that their faith is not just stories, but is something real, something tangible, something that you could see, that you could touch, that you could walk on. And you don't get that anywhere in the world more so than in the city of David.
Ze'ev, there are literally tens of millions of people watching this show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
Come and see for yourself. We've been saying for thousands of years, next year in Jerusalem, this is the time to come, to see, to visit the places that have made your faith come to life, not only relevant 2,000 or 3,000 years ago, but relevant today and relevant tomorrow.
Thank you, Ze'ev, for being on the show. And thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.
And now the truth from Zion.
Reza Pahlavi is gaining popularity in the United States. His message is simple. The Iranian people deserve a secular, democratic state based on equality. His plan is not ideological. It is constitutional. It emphasizes free elections, the rule of law, protection of minorities, and peaceful relations with its neighbors, including Israel. In recent months, that message has moved from outside circles to the mainstream of U.S. foreign policy discussion. Reza Pahlavi is not a newcomer. As the son of the last Shah of Iran, he has spent more than 4 decades in exile. He has rejected claims to the throne and consistently emphasized that Iran's future must be decided by its people. His platform has remained consistent: separation of religion and state, full civil rights for all citizens, and transitional justice that avoids revenge. What has changed is the level of interest in Washington. U.S. lawmakers across party lines have taken a fresh look at the Iranian opposition following the Woman, Life, Freedom protest in 2022. Pahlavi has emerged as a unifying figure. His calm tone and emphasis on legality have helped him earn credibility among policymakers. He has met with members of Congress, former officials, and think tank leaders. In early 2023, Reza Pahlavi testified virtually to U.S. lawmakers and met with Iranian American leaders in Washington. He emphasized 3 pillars: an immediate end to the radical Islamic Republic's repressive apparatus, the protection of civil order during any transition, and the preparation of institutions to manage elections, security, and basic services. His team provided documents outlining transitional mechanisms that included short-term charters, vetting procedures, legal reforms, and the integration of exiled professionals into a post-regime public sector. Several U.S. lawmakers, particularly from committees focused on foreign affairs and national security, began referencing his ideas in speeches and resolutions. At the same time, Pahlavi's name started appearing in mainstream editorials and cable news commentary. The White House has not endorsed Pahlavi directly, but key administration figures have met with his representatives and reviewed his proposals. Quiet signals have been sent that if the Iranian people move decisively, the U.S. would welcome a legitimate government that emerges from a democratic process, one that upholds human rights, abandons proxy warfare, and complies with non-proliferation norms. Iranian American groups have also rallied around his message. Many young professionals who grew up in the U.S. but maintain family ties to Iran see in Pahlavi a voice that respects tradition without being bound by it. His repeated emphasis on inclusion, especially for women, ethnic minorities, and religious communities, has allowed him to form working relationships with a wide range of diaspora organizations. The policy vision he presents is gaining definition. He has called for a two-stage process. First, a transitional charter that guarantees civil rights, releases political prisoners, and sets rules for fair elections. Second, a freely elected constitutional assembly that writes a new governing document. He has proposed international observers to monitor both stages and has laid out clear roles for the judiciary, armed forces, and civil service during this transition. U.S. institutions have begun preparing for that possibility. Discussions are underway at the State Department and other agencies about how to rapidly support a legitimate Iranian government when the moment comes. Analysts across the spectrum recognize that a free Iran would immediately weaken the Moscow, Tehran, and Beijing axis. It would cut off support to Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and other terrorist militias. It would open a vast new market for regional trade and energy integration. It would replace instability with opportunity from the Persian Gulf to the Caucasus. The fanatic Iranian Shiite regime understands that this progress poses a clear and present danger to their tyrannical rule. They have responded with smears and threats. State-run news outlets attack Pahlavi on a weekly basis. Intelligence-linked accounts on social media try to discredit his message, but this perverted strategy is failing. Each new attack reminds Iranians and Western audiences that the regime fears what Reza Pahlavi represents.
America should embrace Reza Pahlavi's 100-day plan. Through his leadership, we can finally bring freedom to the people of Iran.
Reza Pahlavi's plan provides a credible roadmap, and more Americans are listening. From Jerusalem, this is the truth from Zion. Up next, shining light from Israel.
Hey folks, Yishai Fleischer here. I'm the international spokesman for the Jewish community of Hebron, and I'm about to take you to one of the most unique and important biblical shrines in the world. They call it the Tomb of the Patriarchs, but that's a mistake, because it's actually the Tomb of the Patriarchs and Matriarchs. It's the mamas and the papas of the Jewish people, the founders of the biblical story. The whole essence of the book of Genesis happens right here. Let's go in together. So the Bible tells us in chapter 23 of the book of Genesis about the purchase that Abraham made where he was going to bury his beloved wife Sarah. Later, he was buried here, Abraham. After that, Isaac and Rebekah were buried in this sepulcher. And finally, Leah and Jacob, the first Israel. And that was about 4,000 years ago. So this is a 4,000-year-old site with a building that's 2,000 years old. And the Jewish people have been praying here all those years. King David prayed here. Everybody's always prayed here. But you know what? There was a time where it wasn't so simple. In the year 1267, the Muslim Mamluks came to town, and they told the Jews, get out of the building. Well, what do you mean get out of the building? Our parents are buried underneath this building, and this is a Jewish building built 2,000 years ago by a Jewish king. And there was a staircase here, and the staircase, they were only allowed up to the 7th step, and they weren't allowed any further. And Jews came here and prayed here in the cold and in the heat for 700 years. 700 years of tenacity, of saying we belong inside. These are our mothers and fathers. We'll never let go of their memory and their heritage until they were liberated and allowed to go back in. Still, Jews come and pray in this place because they remember the 700 years of prayers and tears that sanctified this holy place. Here at the tomb of the patriarchs and matriarchs, you have Sarah next to Abraham. Right from the get-go, it was all about these people coming together to give birth to a nation. So people come into this room, and what do? They have life cycle events. They have a bar or a bat mitzvah when a girl or a boy becomes of age, or they have a circumcision ceremony. And even I myself got married in this great space, and my wife sat here getting prepared for the wedding with Sarah, with Abraham, going into the wedding canopy. So towards the end of the book of Genesis, we learned that Jacob buries his wife Leah here at the tomb of the patriarchs and matriarchs, not Rachel. Rachel is buried at the tomb of Rachel in Bethlehem, which is about 20 kilometers north. And the reason for that is that Rachel died in childbirth in Bethlehem, and maybe Jacob was just too brokenhearted to bring her here. He just couldn't travel with her. Or maybe because we learn in the book of Jeremiah that Rachel refuses to be consoled. She continuously cries for her children. But this place is a place of consolation. It's where mothers and fathers are together. So here's Leah, and then you'd probably guess that across the way is, let's go over there and see, the patriarch Jacob. There he is, the patriarch Jacob. Now, Jacob was dying in Egypt, and he says to his children, don't bury me in Egypt. I don't want to be buried here. I want to go back to the place that Abraham purchased for full money. And he was buried there, and so was Sarah, and so was Isaac and Rebekah, and I buried Leah there, and I want to be buried in Hebron. And here he is. And here's another hall where we get that family feeling. Now, Jacob is not just Jacob, he's got another name. That's the name of Israel. That's the super name of the Jewish people. Jacob is like the mild-mannered reporter. When he tears off the shirt, it's Israel underneath. And so this place marks that Israel, that nation that has so many stories about it, so many issues throughout times, because this is a chosen nation, a special nation that God chose to bring God's light into the world. That's Israel. And the beginning of that are here at the tomb of the patriarchs and matriarchs. And people come here from all over the world to pray, to connect, to spill their heart, and to get strength to continue the chain of the matriarchs and patriarchs walking in the path of God. All right, folks, I hope you enjoyed your tour of the tomb of the patriarchs and matriarchs here in beautiful and ancient Hebron. It is a very ancient place, and you've got to come visit it. You know, it's a bucket list dream to come to the land of Israel, and you're certainly going to go to Jerusalem, and you're certainly going to connect to the place where 2 temples existed, but don't forget to come visit us. The mothers and the fathers are waiting for you. Shalom.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Rebekah Roberts.
And I'm Yochanan Elrom, reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Join us again next week for all of your Israel updates.